Hi there, I'm Mary Susie from Bead Me a Story. Thanks so much for joining me today. We're going to be doing a side-by-side dodecahedron. So I wanted to do this because when you learn to make the most basic dodecahedron, which is a sphere, it is much easier to learn this in a regular size than it is to do it with larger size jump rings. But this looks really cool, right? So we want to learn this, but I will tell you that visually, this is much more difficult to understand as you're going along. So if you just practice with a regular size one, and these are very medium-sized jump rings, medium-sized O-rings we're doing this with, then later you can go down to much smaller sizes, or you can go up to much larger sizes. And as I said, when you go to these larger sizes, it can be very difficult to see and understand what you're doing if you don't have the foundation of already knowing how to make this. So I thought it would be worth showing you how to do a side-by-side. Obviously, I did some nice Halloween colors in these over here. And of course, the goal with doing the ones with the bigger jump rings is to get some holiday ornaments that you can hang up on your tree, or you can make these in all sorts of colors to hang in your car, or do all sorts of different kinds of things with. So I wanted to, like I said, show you where to begin and then where we're going to go with the larger size jump rings. But I also want you to keep in mind that this is usually the foundation that I use for snowflake ornaments and all sorts of three-dimensional objects. So this is very easy to learn and to do. And at the same time, it's so useful. You can do so many things with it. These could have been, not earrings, but beaded beads. You can make garlands out of them. They can, be part of three-dimensional objects, like I've done snowmen before and things like that. So just keep in mind that when you're learning something very basic like this, then later on it can be turned into something all that much more detailed and spectacular. So it's great to learn foundational things so that you can take it further in the future. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm going to show you this side by side, but the first thing I wanted to point out is I have my larger 485 FN Zoran pliers out, and I want to show you what kind of the purpose of these are. You can see they have a longer nose and they have a flat nose. And when I like to use these is with these larger rings. So in this larger size of dodecahedron that we're going to do, you can see that it's much handier to have not only a long nose plier, but a flat nose plier to open and close our jump rings with, because you can grab a lot more of the jump ring with it. And when I use much larger jump rings like this, I don't use a jump ring opening tool. I just don't think you can get enough in there to make it useful, so I don't tend to use it. But I do really like these larger nose pliers for working with these larger sizes, and these are 16 gauge 3/8 of an inch. And the whole point is I just don't want to mar my rings at all, so I want to get a really good grip on a lot of the ring as opposed to just grabbing a tiny little bit, which is fine when you're using smaller rings, but not as good when you're using larger jump rings. Okay, so you can see I've done half of a dodecahedron on either side here. And the main thing I want to illustrate to you is to learn this in the smaller size first before moving to the larger, because it can get very confusing if you try and do this just jumping into the larger size. Now, maybe your mind works that way and maybe you'll be able to understand it right away. But I know that when I move into the larger size, it's always confusing to me because these jump rings are so large in comparison to the O-rings that you have a tendency to look at the jump rings, and what you should really be looking at is the smaller rings inside of here. Okay, so I'm going to show you, we'll just go back through how to create the dodecahedron. So I've got 18 gauge 3/16 square rings, and I'm picking up 4 rubber O-rings to start. These are my 7.25 millimeter O-rings. You can use other sizes. These are just the easiest couple of sizes for me to show this with. But anytime you're using a 7.25 millimeter O-ring, 18 gauge will always work no matter what size you're using. So you can go larger and larger and larger. I'm not sure if I've tried one with the 18 gauge 5/32. It may just be too small to get around 4 O-rings, but anything larger than that, 18 gauge 3/16 and on up, is going to work every time. Okay, so you see I've created my little strip here. I've got 2 jump rings and I've got 3 sets of O-rings. And I just kind of turn this to indicate that this is my center set of O-rings. And then these 2 branches are radiating off of that. And then I'm going to take another jump ring. I'm going to pass it through this middle pair of O-rings. I'm going to add another spoke to this wheel. So this is my 3rd radiating arm. Okay. And then we're going to need 4 and 5. So here's our number 4. And you see I'm able to work with these longer nose pliers with smaller ones too. I don't know that I'd work with 20 gauge with these, but 18 gauge works just fine. A flat nose plier is a good thing, but I am, I have used all the pliers and I'm very comfortable with them. So you might want to use a shorter nose plier. I'm just doing this because we're doing a side by side. And I don't want to have to change pliers every time I switch to the other project. Okay, so here is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 radiating arms. Okay, made kind of like a little star here. But you can see we have a pair of O-rings in the middle, and then we have pairs of O-rings coming out from that middle. And there are 5. So there's 1 in the middle and then 5 around the outside. And then to get this shape, all we've done is connected each of those 5 branches on the outside. Okay, so just to speed this up a little bit, you can see I've done 1, 2, 3 of these connections. And then I'll show you number 4 and 5. Just so we go back through all of it again. And then, like I said, you always want to do this smaller version and understand it before trying something with very large jump rings. Okay, that's number 4 and number 5. Okay, so that's the second half of my sphere that I've made. And just to remind you, or just in case you haven't watched my other video showing how to do a dodecahedron, we're going to end up connecting these 2 sides of the sphere together. And we're going to do it like this, where we're going to connect on diagonals. So from here to here, from here to here, here to here, and so on and so forth, all the way around. And then every single connection we have is going to end up with 5 jump rings radiating out of it. Okay, so no matter where you look, it'll end up with 5. But I'm going to set this to the side for now, and now let's look at this large one. So in order to do the large one, I have 6 pairs. I wanted to do this in 2 colors too, just to kind of show you how this works. So I've got the green and red, and then I'll do red and green. Okay, so this is going to be my center jump ring. And I have 4 O-rings radiating out. Okay, and then here is my second jump ring. Pass up through the red, and then we'll pick up green and then red. Okay, and that lands all of our red on one side and all of our green on the other side. Now you can already see this doesn't really look much like what we did before, so let's look at it this way. We'll look at it this way to show that this is our center pair of O-rings, and then everything else is going to radiate out from it. Let me just fix this. Gotta close our jump rings nice. When I do videos, I get speeding through, and sometimes it's not as nice as I would do if I was concentrating better. Okay, so here's our center, and I'm going to pass my jump ring through here, and then again you can see that my red is on the left, so I want to put like a red beside it and then a green, and this is going to mean when they swing up they'll be on the correct sides. I don't think I've ever shown you that you can change the colors of these O-rings before. It'd be very hard to change the colors of the outside because of how everything ends up laying out. But this is one place where you can do a couple of colors. Okay, and then I'm going to go through this center one again. I'm using 16 gauge jump rings here, so it's going to be a little bit tighter. And my red is on the left, so I'm going to do red and then green. Okay, so this is the same thing we were doing it in the orange. It's just going to look different as we go along. And then here's our last one. So you can see we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We want 5 jump rings radiating out from the center. This last one's always the toughest. That's why you want a little bit better grip. So at the very least, use a flat nose. And then, like I said, I really like using the longer nose just for opening and closing my jump rings, because I just feel like I get more opportunity to grab more of the ring. Okay, all right, so let's look at this now. So here is my center rings, okay, and then I have 5 jump rings radiating out from the center, 2 pairs of rubber O-rings that are kind of to the outside. Okay, I lay it down a little bit better. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs around the outside here. And then you see, just like before, and if I kind of push these up, you can see that we're just connecting these outside pairs of O-rings, but you can already see that it looks a little bit different. It looks a little bit different than this because the O-rings are so far to the inside here compared to this one. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and make these connections. So just focus on the O-rings when you do this and try and ignore what the jump rings are doing. And that's kind of the trick to this. And that's why I really want to make sure that you try a smaller one before you ever try a larger one, so that you really know what you're doing and you know what you're looking at as you try and attempt a larger one. It's not hard to do. It's just you know, having the whole idea in your brain of what's going to happen and what each connection is doing before you attempt this. Okay, so I'm going to connect all of these 5 pairs around the outside. And when you're using big rings too, it's even more important that you make your jump rings close very nicely, because you're really going to see it if they're not closed well. There's no place to hide it. Whereas in the smaller dodecahedron, you can turn all your seams to the inside and they'll very much stay there, so it's not too much to worry about. So you can see I keep kind of pulling this out, looking for my center rings. And I've got 2 more connections to make. Okay, so as you get started linking the 2 sides of your spheres together, I'll just remind you, we're going to be doing that at the diagonal. So the first connection from one side of the sphere to the next is just pick any one of the pairs around the outside and connect. And then I'm going to use this one as my first one. So you can see I have 4 jump rings and I have 4 jump rings. So this is going to be my first pair of O-rings that has 5 jump rings passing through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to connect to this next pair of O-rings in the row that only has 3 jump rings passing out of it now. And now it has 4 as I pass this one through. Okay. And then I'm going to go from, you can see this has 5, this has 4, so I'm going to go from my 4 and diagonal to one that has 3. And this turned around, of course, I'll turn it back around. Okay, you can see this has 4 now. And this has 5 connections. Got an ugly closure there that I'll try and fix real quickly. Okay. And then I have 4. I'll go to a 3. Okay, so just diagonal all the way around. We're just linking the 2 sides of this together in a diagonal formation to get them connected. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop that one and let's bring in the large size. So you can see as I turn this on the side, you can see things a lot better. But, you know, all these large jump rings can be very distracting to the eye. So just make sure you're always working around the outside. This center pair is quite separated from the rest. And so let's just kind of go for it and we'll see how this works out. Now again, these are 16 gauge jump rings, not 18 gauge anymore. So it's going to be a little tighter as you work this. Okay, but I just picked one of my outside rows. You can see my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows around the outside. And I'm going to connect to any one of the 5 rows on this side. So just starting to connect the 2 sides of my sphere together. Okay, and you see as I join that, it can be very hard to kind of see what's going on. And that's why I want you to get real familiar with this smaller one before you start doing this larger one, so that you can really stay focused on, hey, I'm connecting O-rings here and I know how I'm going to do it. Okay, so we have 4 over here and 4 over here. That's our first connection. I can open this back up so you can see the 2 sides again. And then just like before, I'm going to start over here on my right hand side with this one that has 4 connections. And I'm going to pass my jump ring through. Okay. And I'm going to connect to the next pair of O-rings in the row over here. Just pull these out. And you can see these kind of shift around a little bit more with the larger than they do with the smaller, which is another aspect that makes this more challenging. And I will mention, you don't have to just do 2 O-rings. Actually, when you start doing these larger ones, if you want to do 3, you can also do that. Okay, so I've got this has 5 now, and this one's going to have 4. And I'm trying to keep this in position, with the right side of the sphere to my right and the left side to my left, so I can kind of keep track of this center row that I'm trying to build here. Okay, so I've got 4 over here, 3 over here. You can see I've got 5 here, so that one's finished. Nothing else is going to go through there. So I'm going to go through my 4. And you can see this is a little harder to find a good place to grab onto too. So that's another aspect that makes this more difficult. But they sure do make cute ornaments. I mean, they look really neat. They end up looking like an atom. Okay, so that kind of got turned around, my left and right side, as I worked this jump ring in. And that's okay. I'm just going to turn it back around, keeping track of my middle row once again, so I can see now I'm going to go from here with the 4 over to here with the 3. Got through that 4, that's the 5th one. This side should be a little bit easier because it only has 3 jump rings passing through right now. Okay. And just make sure you don't accidentally pass through any of these other jump rings. These are all standing by themselves. You don't want it to cross through another jump ring as you pass through these tighter spaces. Okay, so I'm just looking back to see my open part. Okay, so that's got 5. This has 4, and this has 3. So this is our next connection we're going to do. Okay, and it turned around while I was working. That's okay. If you lose your spot, just go looking for one that has 4 connections through it. That's kind of the secret to this. It's understanding. You can see this has 5 connections, this has 4, and this has 3. So that's my next diagonal I'm looking for. You get better at this as you go along, being able to see things and see where you need to be working. Just takes practice. And that's again why I thought it was really important to show you kind of a side by side and help you to understand why you would want to do a much simpler, smaller one first before trying a big one like this, so you could kind of see it the way I'm seeing it and understand that this is going to be quite a bit harder. So you really want to get all the steps down. You really want to get this in your head before you try to attempt a big one like this. They're really fun and they're really cool, but you know, if you don't have the pattern down, this can be very, very difficult to try and get into your head. Okay, and you can see, you know, everything keeps turning around as I work it, so I try and bring it back to position. Okay, and I'm looking, this has 5, this has 4, that's probably what I'm looking for. This has 3. That looks like a good connection to make. I can see it's on the diagonal. So I'll pass through the one that has 4 first, and come over here to the one that has 3. And now that will have 4 jump rings passing through it. Okay. And now this has 4. This has 3. Oh, I thought I was short a jump ring. One was hiding up there on me. Okay, so this has 4, this has 3, and this has 4. So when I get to the end, I'm going to be connecting a 4 jump ring to a 4 jump ring. Okay, so I'm going to do this one first. This is 4 jump rings. Now it has 5. I'm connecting to one that has 3 jump rings. And you'll figure out where to grab things to get them through. It is much harder to get these larger jump rings through the 2 O-rings, but you'll get the hang of it as you go along. As I said, it's just practice. Okay, and then here is our final connection. So I see 4 here and 4 here. And this is probably the hardest connection of the whole thing, just because now it really is a sphere. You know, you can't open anything up to get to it more easily. So, you know, you'll notice I'm usually grabbing my jump ring kind of in the center so that I can get it to go straight down. I got it hooked on everything. That'll happen. Don't worry if you struggle a little bit, it's fine. Okay, so I have it coming out of that one, and then I have to come from the inside to the outside of this last one. And this is a lot of times the hardest one to get the jump ring to pass through. This one does take a little bit of hand strength. And then again, make sure it wanted to cross through this jump ring here, but I didn't let it. I pulled it back a little bit. And, you know, the other nice thing too is the rubber is stretchy. So we are stretching it as we go along here. But it's going to facilitate everything and have a high friction. So it's going to keep everything really straight. And then, you know, when I get to the end, I like to pull out all my little sets of 5 and just get them, you know, reoriented and laying smoothly within this. Anything that looks like it's kind of crossing over to the other side. Okay, and then, you know, that this is basically it. We have a nice big dodecahedron that's wide open. You can see that the O-rings don't, you know, they're much more spaced out than they are in the ball form. Here, I'll bring in one that I have finished. So you can see these all are like right up next to each other, whereas they're very spaced out in this one. So it's a whole different look to the whole thing. But this looks really cool, makes great Christmas ornament. And, or, you know, a little hanger, or, you know, it's nice because it's open and you can see through it. Maybe a little window hanger or something like that, or hang it in your car. But these are really, really fun to make once you get the hang of it. And hopefully now seeing how to get there, how to get to this point you'll be able to do this and make lots of these for the holidays. Okay, so thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you got a lot out of this. Of course, all of these supplies and also some kits to make these are available at beadmeastory.com. And I hope to see you next time. But in the meantime, if you want to be alerted next time we put out a video, please be sure to like this video and to follow us on YouTube. Thanks so much.